Today's show is really about being transcendent. What does it mean to be transcendent? It means to be beyond and above the range of normal or merely physical experiences, physical human experiences. Well, we know that we're spiritual beings having a human experience, and we want to be transcendent during this time. Well, my next guest is going to teach us how. Welcome to Soulful Journey.
Soulful means something that's heartfelt, deep and profound. To journey means to travel from one place to another. This show is about deep and heartfelt discussions about where we are, where we're headed, and where we've been. It's a place where we highlight memorable moments we've had. This show is about everything and everyone that is good for the soul.
Thank you so much for joining me once again. And this is another episode of Soulful Journey. My name is Venus Jones, Venus Love Jones, if you've never been here before. And I welcome you with breath. We always, at the top of the show, take a deep breath together. Take 1 minute to relax with it because it's the thing that matters most in this life, because without breath there is no life. So if you don't mind, let's breathe in love, breathe out light. Take 1 minute to relax with your breath. Feel yourself breathing in and feel yourself breathing out without trying to control your pattern of breathing. Relax your shoulders. Relax your jaw. Notice how every breath is different from the next. It is the same with life, ever changing and ever evolving. Whatever is going through your mind right now, you can let it slip away. And just for this moment, we can come back to harmony because you are safe. You are accepted. You are forgiven. And you are loved. All right, today we're going to dive deep into, a lot today. I'm really talking to a good friend of mine, and from way back. Okay, we've kind of lost touch. We're not, but this is a person who I do know, and we workshopped poems together during my graduate studies. We somewhat lost touch, but I was watching, the Dave Chappelle special recently, his recent comic stand, and I was thinking about this person, and I said, "Oh wow, I wonder what's going on with Rex." And I found out the funny thing is I reached out just because I wanted to hear Rex's perspective on that last comedy special, and Rex was like, I just had a dream about us running around Mills Hall. And I was like, no way. Because we went to Mills College together. So I just want to, at the beginning of the show, I always like to do a poem that reminds me of the person that I'm interviewing. And so I thought, okay, well, what poem would I do? Well, I may not be a trans person, but I do know what it feels like for people to call you kind of strange and quirky. So I thought I should do this poem, and it's called Strange. They call me strange, quirky, a weird sister. Why? I feel like I'm by every blue moon when a goddess catches my eye, but I'm quite happy in my monogamous marriage to a straight white man with no dream of a baby carriage. And to some, well, that makes me uncool like that. They call me strange. Some call me whack. Here's the skinny. I never had a big fat back. I never wanted to slack. I never wanted to be a gangster with a gat. I wanted to greet you with a hug and a kiss. I never wanted to wear a poker face. I wanted you to know that it was you that I missed. So they call me strange, quirky, weird sister. Why? My free spirit will never die. My soul is as ancient as Osiris. I see through a third eye. But I'm still quite common, with a pinch of style and a cup of class. If you give me something fried, I'll most likely say pass. Yet I get down with quote unquote trailer trash and those clean campers that roll on cash. I'm a poster child for pure raw energy. 3 letters, spell it out, ADD. So I may seem a little slow, but I'm faster than the melancholy. So some call me strange, quirky, weird sister. Why? I get high off of natural air. My personality will come in a pair. Gemini coasters. You want to go for a ride? But I'm checking myself daily because I'm packing a whole lot of pride, rolling solo by choice. You see, I had to make friends with my inner voice, evolving for the calling. So sometimes you catch me stalling, but you'll never find me locking the door. I let the Most High keep spiritual score. And I know that it is easier to blend, and often I see us as the same, but I accept the fact that I am different. As different as my fingerprint and my middle name. And it's possible you felt like an outsider. Quite possible that you've been labeled too. Well, here's a quote that might help. To thine own self be true. So this next guest, I want to tell you that our next guest is Rexy, and Rexy is someone. Well, how do I say it? Let me just introduce Rex, and then we'll get into it, because there is something really special that I want to say, and I think it's better that rexylafemme introduce themselves as best as possible through their own work, right? Through poetry, just like me. So I'm going to just go ahead and just say, without any further ado, introduce you to rexylafemme. Hey,
oh my God, I love that poem. It was so good to hear your voice. Poster child for pure raw energy, got me. Your soul being more ancient than Osiris. And also just like the outsider, like the strong outsider love. I feel like we met in that context. Like we were kind of the weirdos and outsiders of Mills in this like really crazy mansion school.
right.
And yeah, it's just really, really nice to hold space with you and be with you again and hear your work.
Well, is there a poem that you would like to introduce yourself? And then I'll dive a little more deeper into your bio for those who don't know. But is there a poem that could introduce you to the viewers and listeners?
Yeah. So this is a poem so I am a like tarot and divination practitioner, and like mediumship practitioner, and I started doing some like writing and poems through like pulling cards and like working with tarot, and this is one of those poems, and it's also kind of like, you know, living through COVID vibes, etc. And it's called Communications Between Selves.
Okay.
Part 1. 3 hawks across the blue sky canvas, buds opening all around. You can't stop the seasons, even if it feels like one will never end. It's been COVID winter for a year. Everything around still grew. Life doesn't stop for death. living our best lives through the suffering still. There's nothing new about that. The pangs of other times, past events, somehow always in this moment, tapping at the back door. If only we could remember what it is to be angels, we would heal. The body, the spirit, their destiny is to heal. That's what life is all about. Another go around, yet we forget. To live, to heal, is to remember. Fear is a liar. It steals your energy away, blocks access to the core of you. Acknowledge it, but don't run with it. Remember, you are the genderless healer, the all and nothingness in a body that channels universes to transmute others. Trust your power. You were sent here to use them, tiny angel. The mentor is the cosmos. Waiting in the wings is everything. Part 2. I like traveling to deep space where everything in the universe sees me and we know we are all one. And there is no we, actually, because we are so much more. On Earth, I speak in codes to those who don't know how to read the map of me. It's okay, I guess, but I get tired of so many questions, so many confusions, when to just be is the desire, is the point. But people need to tether things to the ground to understand them, to feel safe. A name is not enough, nor a sound, or a feeling, which is the truest thing. If I said, I am consciousness in a form in a consciousness, like you, it wouldn't be enough. Never enough, because we are so much more, beyond a word, beyond a body, and that's what's so cool about it all.
Yes.
And that's also what they seem to hate, to be afraid of. I'm just trying to be, aren't you?
Oh, wow.
Which I feel like is like perfect, like our poems are like perfect conversations between
Yes,
each other.
it's like your poem just pretty much talked to my poem. It was
Yeah.
like the answer to it, right?
Yeah.
Like, I knew this was gonna be a divine call. I am so excited. Like I said, speaking of intuition, because I wanted, first of all, I gave you at the top of the hour a definition of what Webster's dictionary says transcendent means, which means, again, to move above and beyond the range of quote, quote normal and a merely physical human experience. And I feel like that's so interesting because would you say that you resonate with that definition of what transcendent means?
Yeah,
as
totally.
a trans person?
Yeah, I mean, I really like to think of like myself less as like transgender and more as transcendent. And there's like this quote, you are the universe expressing itself as human for a little while. And that's kind of how I feel about my gender and like also what it is to be a person, you know? It's like yeah, like I feel like beyond masculine, beyond feminine, also both of those things, also, you know, like just like everything at once. And I think that we all are that in some way or another. But like we live in society, in a world that like needs to have definitions. And I was actually like ruminating about transcendence and also like how to be grounded in like practice, in like life practice. And I pulled this card, this archetype card called a gape, and a gape is like all about like awe and wonder. And the message was, what if the center of your spiritual practice was not the self, but spirit itself, or like nature itself, or God, God, or the cosmos itself? And yeah, I guess that's kind of like how I see the experience of transcendence too. It's just like we are ourselves, but we're also like a reflection of the cosmos and like spirit in form. And it's like, I don't know, it's really powerful to like be everything and nothing, and also a body, and also,
And yes, and when I have to admit, like one of the words that popped up for me in your poem is the word confusion. Because even as I'm introducing you, I'm getting nervous, as I'm sure you see a lot around cisgendered people. I'm getting nervous because I just don't know how, if you remember, like even when we were at Mills, I remember like you were not upset with me when I would slip sometimes with the wrong pronoun, but it seemed
Yeah.
like other people were.
It's
Do
true.
you remember that?
I do remember that. I think that,
And you knew my heart, but
yeah, I think then that's like, you know, and there are times where like I don't advocate for myself out of like trying to be small, but also, yeah, I think it's like seeing people's intention and I understand, you know, I didn't know what being trans was either because we don't learn about, like, we're not given access to the expansion of identity until we are exposed or have to figure it out for ourselves. And so I understand that because my process was one of becoming and learning, that like other people are on that journey too. And like, you know, you have to like, yeah, like really understand intention. Like when people are being malicious, then I'm like, yeah, well, you know, F you. But like
right.
when, you know, you're like, oh, and also I feel like it excites me when people see multiple things. Like I really love when in one sentence people are like he and then she and then they, because it's just like, yeah, that's it. Like it's all of them. It's not just the one. And so I feel like in my experience at Mills, it was like sometimes people would slip up and then I would just be like, okay, yeah, whatever. And then other people were like ready to like throw down. And it's like, it's cool. Let's just work with it, you know?
Right. Well, when I think of God, though, and because you mentioned God, and I trust that. I guess, do you believe in God, and what does God mean to you? Because when I think of God, I think of something that is all encompassing, that is gender neutral, or something that where I can see myself as. But I hope that someone else who might be identify as male can see themselves, and someone who's in between can see themselves. So that's what's so funny, because when I was reading your bio and I started to read it, but then I was like, "Ooh, should I?" Is because it said, for example, it says S /HE, and I was wondering if it should be they was a 2017 Emerge NYC Performance Fellow, um, right? Or was I supposed to say right? So, but I remember the first time I saw she with the backslash in there, I was like, oh, that is so cool to see S and then at /HE, because it's like to be able to say she or he. We're back in the day when females weren't even thought of. It was always he doing something, or he, right? I love now when I remember seeing that for the first time. It was like in the late or mid 90s that I first saw it, and that's why I thought it was so cool that it was in your bio. Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I just want people to feel to know that it's okay to slip, and if as long as you know your heart, and if you are trying to get the pronouns right. But do you think everybody should ask people up front what their pronouns are? Because you see that a lot more now.
Yeah, I think it's funny because there are so many ideas, you know, like I don't know, trans people are as numerous as their values about, you know, it's just like there are some people who would be like, oh, I'm uncomfortable by that, and other people really like honor, like it feels really like honoring to them when like people ask. And I think that like in kind of like, you know, like event spaces or like ritual spaces or like group spaces that like someone's curating, it's always helpful to like leave the opportunity to be like, if you want to, you know, let us know of your pronoun, then please do, or whatever. But like in conversation, sometimes it feels awkward or it might put people on the spot. But I think it's always good to kind of like have some kind of intention around it, whether it's like, I'm just going to wait until, if I can't, you know, I'm just going to wait to like hear what other people use, or like,
Yeah.
you know, it's like a case by case thing. But I think that like just having some kind of intention around it is helpful.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
it's a generational thing too. Like some trans people get really annoyed by that, and then others are like younger folks, I feel like, are like, it's so part of the culture to like lead to lead with that, with like
Mm-hmm.
go around.
And get so caught up in it. And but like I said, I feel like that for me, that's why I was so happy that I don't know what you remember most about Mills, or like what was your most fun memory of us in Mills, or like
I don't know. I think that we had a lot of fun with the Place for Writers. So the Place for Writers was this we had an assistantship to plan graduate like writing events and stuff, and Venus and I it was like a good group. It was like a group of weirdos, I feel like. A lot of different personalities. And I don't know, I think we had a lot of fun in the meetings and like our weekly meetings, and then we also had a lot of fun at events, like in the back drinking wine and like
I know, oh my gosh. And just workshopping and just to see that your work is done. You have a book. Remind me the title of your book again.
It's called When There Is No One and There Is Everyone, and that was actually my thesis. So
right. Yeah. And I remember some, because I was looking through the book again, and I'm like, whoa, I kind of remember some of this work. Yeah. And then to see pictures of Jova, Unique in there, I was like, whoa, where am I at?
Oh no.
You did give me a shout out. I felt like when you talked about the planet Venus being in retrograde.
Yeah. Because we would talk about that a lot, I feel like.
Huh?
Because you would talk about being in retrograde, like yourself.
Yeah, so we're always looking for ourselves, right? Like I said, and that's kind of why I asked, and I've never asked anybody to define God, but coming back to that question, because it's a deep question. But this is Soulful Journey, so you're going to get deep questions, soul check questions here.
I love it,
but because a lot of times we all see God as a different thing, and especially being a trans person, I think one of the questions people might have is like, have you ever felt abandoned by God, or felt like you did? Why was I me? Like this, or have you ever felt like that, or did that have an effect on your faith or your spirituality?
Yeah. I mean, I grew up Catholic.
Okay.
I grew up, working class white Catholic in New York City. And I went to Catholic school, and that brand of Catholicism was like severely constrictive and anti-body and anti-pleasure and anti-everything, and very like white, patriarchal, capitalist God, who is, everything you do is wrong. And even if you think about something, you don't have to do something to be wrong. If you thought about it, you're a sinner. Like, it's just like, I grew up with that, and it was so traumatic, honestly. Yeah. And I fell away from spirituality for a really long time because of it. And also just like, felt like totally disconnected in some way from like that term, from the term God, and also from like, religion. And then I also had these like really intense experiences of like intuitive connection and like visions and like all this kind of stuff, like Joan of Arc style. And I started coming back into, just into like I feel like it's like really a lot about embodiment and like relating to a higher, like God for me is like, like force, like energy, like that raw, pure energy, and like it
transcends everything. It's a source that transcends everything, right? Speaking of transcendent, that's
and I always say that I've said for a really long time that like God is trans, because
I knew you were gonna say it. I was trying to get you to say it.
Body, like, can be embodied, doesn't have to be. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I got excited. What do you say?
No, just like God is an energy, God is a spirit, can be a form, like God is everywhere. It's just like this like transcendent force that like goes beyond all kind of definitions and structures and physical form and like all that kind of stuff. And it's really cool. And like when I think in some way, like everybody, all people are trans or all people are non-binary, because we don't fit into boxes either. Like we're so beyond all of these like ideas and definitions of like what a person is, or like, yeah.
What do you we got to get to this question before I forget, because a lot of people are tuning in just for this question. Well, I just want to know, how you felt about Dave Chappelle's recent special. You just said it. A lot of us feel, even though if we might not say a poem like I did, like calling yourself weirdo or strange, or but we may try. Some people might hide it, that they're feeling outcasted, or like they don't fit, or into this box, this neat box, whether it be something about sexuality or gender, or even race, because I've even as a lot of people say, "What are you?" Asking me like, "Do I not look like what I say I am?" That's what I get from people. So, but the point is that how did you feel watching? Did you get through the whole show? Because I know it might have been triggering for you. And what did you think about it?
Well, I didn't actually see it. So I heard about it online, and from what I understand, he said something about like, I'm a TERF, and a TERF is a trans exclusionary radical feminist is what that term means, and that comes from pretty much like white feminist 70s like culture, like feminist culture that was like very much like anti-trans women, and was like, trans women are men, trans women are pedophiles, trans women are just trying to like, encroach upon our space, and just like this very essentialist idea of womanhood. And he was saying that he like identifies with like JK Rowling, and she's come under like really intense scrutiny in the last few years because she's like really doubled down on her feminism being about basically about white women, and like not including trans people in the context of
right. And in his stand-up routine, he said that he quoted or talked about her saying something like alluding to gender being a fact,
right,
like versus something lucid, right?
right.
Yeah, so that.
And my reaction is like, though I haven't seen it, I've seen a lot of people talk about it, and I think it's just really reactionary. I think that cis people get really uncomfortable by like trans people asserting who they are, and I think that they're also confused because it's like we all grow up basically with this understanding, which is also a very like white supremacist colonizer definition of like what gender is. Like we grow like the thing is that it oppresses everybody to believe that there's like male and female and that's it, and men and women and that's it. And it's also like it's not based in fact, because on the chromosomal level, like you can have all of these different iterations that equate to what we call a man or what we call a woman, and also like there's just like all different expressions of like sexual characteristics. So like it's just like it's so much more complicated than that. But I think like cis people are like, I don't understand this. I don't want to understand this. I'm just upset. Like, why do people need to, like, why do I have to be presented with this they stuff? And like, what is this? And it's just like, y'all like, also like Boy George was a thing. And like, that was a question of like, what is this person? David Bowie, Prince, like all these people.
Yeah.
Like,
a lot of the people we grew up watching. Yeah.
But it's like, well,
and idolizing.
Yeah. But like, oh, well, I was comfortable then because I wasn't being challenged to like honor their identity. Like I could just see them and be like, you know, I don't know. So that's kind of my take on it. And I think that ultimately, like it, you know, when we're coming back to spirit and intuition too, it's just like, I find that, any kind of oppression or any kind of like prejudice, it's a, you know, it's a nervous system response. Like it's an embodied like discomfort with like being presented with the other and being like, but well, what about me though? Like, cause
Yeah.
I'm oppressed too.
Yeah.
And, you know
Well,
what I
and
mean?
I'm glad, can I pause you there? Because
Yeah.
that's exactly the part that that stood out the most for me, is when he said, you know, I'm not, even though he labeled himself as transphobic, you know, as being the joke, but then he goes on to talk about his friend who he let her, or they, speak for, you know, to open up a show, right? And unfortunately that trans friend of his passed away, so he spends the later half of the, and I have a feeling some people didn't get to that part, but he spends the later half of the special almost tributing this trans person and talking about, and later you have some of that trans person's family like defending him, even in this special, when the cancel culture has got to him. But his point was that he felt like sometimes he feels, it's like the oppression Olympics, to your point. Like some people are he feels like he is one of those people who felt like, I'm just jealous, really. I'm really just jealous that the LGBTQ community, it seems like it's moving forward and Black Lives Matter is not. You know, and can you speak to that? Do you feel like the LGBTQ community is just more united, or is there something that you think, what do you say to somebody who feels that way? They're just feeling like they're jealous of trans people. Like, really, I mean, like, that's like, what do you say to that kind of mentality?
I think it's really complicated, because the fact of the matter is that, like, I mean, trans people are always the back end of the barrel when it comes to the LGBTQ community and like rights and like all that kind of stuff. And really, honestly, the fact of the matter is that the burden of responsibility and also the burden of violence and cruelty fall upon Black and Indigenous trans people, trans women. And so it's like, it's really interesting that people would feel like, for the first time, you know, in decades, you know, those communities are like being represented on TV and like holding, like having space. That folks would be so upset about it speaks to, I think, more so, I don't know. I mean, I just think it just speaks to how far we have yet to come, because it's just like, the, you know, I think we really all owe in some way our the freedoms that we have to those women who are, you know, the ones who have passed and the ones who are still alive, who are like really fighting at the forefront for everybody and not being seen and not being acknowledged. And on the other end too, I think that the LGBTQ community, that is visible and that does have a lot of rights, you know, have a lot of privilege and like take up a lot of space, are white people, people, are men, are, you know, maybe trans masculine people. And so there's this, you know, there's so much that we're not united, because you know, the problem.
Right, and I think there's like a misconception that the LGBTQ community, I think, is so united. But we're all working on the whole unity thing as humanity, aren't we?
Yeah.
Like, I just think there's some people more louder than others, and I think, to his point, I feel like when he's saying stop punching down on my people, which was something that has been thrown in his face, I think he's really just saying stop punching down at the end on people like us who really care about humanity.
Yeah.
And because some people get in these silos and they're just like getting into us against them so much where they're not seeing the humanity. And
Right.
I feel like this just takes me back to your childhood. And I don't know, during this time right now, I have to start transitioning into a different part of our program where we and hope you still, I hope you remember to bring this. We have every guest that I have on, I have them bring something. It doesn't have to be from your childhood, but it has to be something that, let's just pretend, imagine that, you're going someplace and you can only take one thing that lifts your spirit or that's going to help. What would you take, Rexy?
I am wearing it, and it's funny because it is a crucifix, and like,
Oh wow. Catholic
um,
girl still coming out.
help.
Boy, I don't know.
But it was my aunt. So my aunt Donna, who was like my second mom. Well, my mom and her were like they used to call them the Bobbsey twins because they were so close. But she took care of me. Like, she was like, when my mom was working, she was like my babysitter, and she was my cheerleader. Like, she was a Virgo and really creative, and she like really like brought out and encouraged my creativity in really big ways. Like, I was always like dancing and performing and like, pretending to be Bette Midler, and she was like right there, pretending to be one of the other characters in a musical or whatever, like egging me on, and like my my biggest fan. And so when she was sick and like in the hospital dying, she wore this every day, and this is like, silver turquoise, kind of like avant-garde. I feel like Jesus crucifix. It's not like as scary as like a lot of the like Catholic representations, but she gave this to her cousin and was like, give this to Rex to hold on for me when I come home. And she didn't come home, but I've had it since I was a kid, and like I've lost it and found it and lost it and found it, and now I'm just like holding on to it, but yeah, it's really special. It just like represents a lot for me around encouragement and motherhood, and like being just like reminding me to be who I am.
Love that.
Yeah.
I love that. And as a little kid, I mean, was your parents just as equally okay? So when you were a kid, because I don't know how you define, were you more femme when you were a kid? Like, what does femme mean to you? Like
Yeah.
Bette Midler. When I think Bette Midler, I think you were playing up the girly side of you.
I was like,
when did you switch? When did you switch? Was there something that happened that made you switch in your mind or body? Or
I think that as a kid, like, yeah, I was like very like, I wanted to be a diva. I was into all of the divas, but then I was also obsessed with like Boy George. And I remember like I would watch my aunt and my mom shave their legs, and I would also watch my uncle shave their face. And when I was 5, like, I was caught trying to shave my legs one day, and then like a few weeks later I was trying to shave my face. And so I feel like that's like a perfect kind of like just synthesis of like who I am. And like I've literally always been both, and I just didn't maybe have the access to understand. But Boy George was definitely one of the like first people where I was just like, oh, this makes a lot of sense. I vibe with this. Yeah, I think drag culture is really like present in pop culture all the time, whether we like know that or not.
Admit it or not, right?
And that's like,
or I think what happens is when we see somebody like Lady Gaga or Boy George, or we see rock star, or some of us do, even though I just watched something today where Lady Gaga was sticking up for oneself and saying, you don't see rock star when you see me, but if I was a male, you would. You just see somebody who's being complicated.
Right.
But I think to the point is that with Prince too, we see rock star in like somebody who has again, see, transcended like this idea of what of us normal mortals, or but you get my point. I feel like I don't know what that is, because you're right. How can someone be so, but again, I still feel like it's an interesting question that you're posing there. I guess the other thing I want to ask then is, and this was a question that I got, where some people bring up this, and like, what about sports? Like, what do you feel like? Do you think that trans people should have their own specific sports, or do you think like if someone is maybe they think stronger than another person and it happens to be a trans person, do you think that they should be in the same category as somebody running in a race who's identifies as a cisgendered female?
I don't really, I'm like not a sports gay, so I'm like, I don't know. But I mean, I think like all of the like conversations, again, like all of the conversations and like decisions that are being made about like trans people in sports is like, like they're being made by cis people, and like around these ideas of like gender and the body that are like really, again, like rooted in white supremacy and rooted in like colonial patriarchy. And so I think that that's like the first step, is like, if like trans people need to be making the decisions about it, not like, not these like white men who run these industries, or like who run these like events and stuff like that. And so I don't know, it's like
they need to be at the table, and I hear you on that, in the discussion right there. I mean, I feel like, and that may not be the case, and we don't always know. But thank you for weighing in. That was just a question that I had that came to us. So I just wanted to also ask if you feel like talking about. I want to ask you about. There's so much here. Intuition. Let's go back to intuition. Given that you have these cards, and like the beginning of the show, you shared like how you take, and I don't know if you're talking like tarot cards, because I have some tarot cards here. Like I have like, like there's this one, I don't know if John Holland made some, or the Oracle deck. I don't know if you have it. And then I have like another one, Doreen Virtue. So I love them. But
Doreen Virtue.
You have Doreen Virtue?
I have a few, yeah.
Yes. So I love the pictures and everything, but I've never thought of doing what you did, like with the poetry. And I know that you have these workshops where you're doing, I want to talk more about your healing work and what you're doing. And do you just work with other trans people, or do you work with everybody? And who are you speaking to nowadays? And what kind of healing work are you doing with the tarot stuff?
Word. Yeah, so I work with everybody. But I do like my like healing work is really grounded in spirituality and intuition as like a revolutionary practice. Because the kind of like work that we do on the self serves the collective, and like we need to be in touch with our own healing in order to like do any kind of like collective healing or kind of like liberation work. And so I do, like with others, I do spiritual readings, which are a kind of like mixed, they're kind of a mixed bag. Like there's divination cards and tarot cards involved. There's like guide, right? Like I basically like will channel with somebody's energy system and with their guides to like receive messages about things that they're, that they're concerned about, or like whatever comes up. And so it's a mixed bag. Like, ancestors come in, colors come in, like different like fairies, you know, like it's kind of like whatever is going on for the person, like the planets come in. So I work with astrology too. And then I also like teach workshops about basically just like about how to get in touch with your spiritual self. And I am working on right now, I have like a Scorpio writing workshop coming up. So basically it's like about like how do we channel the energies of Scorpio season and the archetype in order to like help our writing. And then I was doing workshop. I have a workshop series called the Transcendent Labyrinth of Tarot.
Oh, wow.
Which is all about this, like what we were talking about, like that, like tarot is this art of divination that like the layers, you just, you know, it's like the onion, like you just.
How does it work in your, how do you experience it? Do you feel like when you pull a card, it is your intuition taking over?
I think that so one of my mentors, Victoria Liberatore, she taught me about like asking your ego to be taken out, especially like when you're trying to do intuitive work or readings, because sometimes if you're like in an ego space, you're just reacting and you're like, oh no, death, wah. But like, I think you're setting the intention to like interact with the cards intuitively, yeah, like it's like you're communicating with yourself and you're communicating with like these other forces to reflect your life and experience back, and also help you to, you know, to heal or to change.
Wow. I just finished watching something called Surviving Death, so I'm definitely
I watched all of that.
Did you watch it? Oh my god, wasn't it amazing?
Yes, I loved it.
Especially the last 2 episodes about like seeing signs.
Yeah.
And when
they're everywhere.
Yeah, they are. If you really are doing the work. And I feel like it is, I do think that you have to get to a space of, I think you increase your intuition and your intuitive nature through mindfulness and meditation and getting still. So, you know, I'm so happy that you're still just doing the stuff that we were doing before. We learned a lot about planning events at Mills, and you're still doing this work. So I'm so proud of you for that.
Thank you.
And
you know,
just, like creating a sacred space for people who need it.
Thank you. And I have the same to say about you. It's so beautiful to see all that you're doing, and like, I don't know, you're just such a bright and beautiful person with such a sweet heart and so much to give. And I'm glad that you are giving it.
Yes. And that's why I wanted to, you know, have you on and like make sure your voice is being heard right now, especially now. If there's a word that you have for anybody who happens to be trans, though, what kind of advice would you give to a trans writer more specifically? Is there like anything you would tell them that you wish someone would have told you?
That's a good question. I feel like I have to talk to myself for this too. Like, what do I need to hear right now? I think just like, don't be afraid to like just be weird. I don't know, like to write your story, and to like, don't feel like you need to change anything for the eyes, you know, for the gaze, basically, because I feel like there's a lot of pressure to like fit into different genres, or like to, you know, and I think that that's true for like all kinds of marginal voices. It's like you have to like standardize your voice or whatever, and it's like, yeah, don't, just like write what's true to you, and like take up space. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What has been your greatest joy?
That's a good question. I think my connections to my friends and community, like people, really just make me happy.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay.
Speaking of connections, technology was coming in on there.
Mercury.
Yes, in retrograde. Venus in retrograde.
Yeah.
week ago. I have to keep these away from me right now. But I get it. So it's for you, it is community, and you are creating that. And I think that I wanted to like play a song for you as well, because I know one of your favorite songs is, I don't know if you remember what you put on the because I have everybody that is on this show asking this, but if there's a song that makes you want to dance, sing, cry, or what is that song that's really good for your soul? I don't know if you're going to change your answer right now, but what is that song?
I don't remember what I put. Oh, I do remember what I put. I put "What a Feeling."
Yes, what a feeling.
That's like my anthem when I need to get pumped up. I'm like,
what a feeling by Irene
Cara from the Flashdance soundtrack.
You're so retro. And you threw me off today because I'm like, oh, I'm about to have rexylafemme. I got to get, because for me, femme means like pearls. Yeah. And then you come here with this tropical Hawaiian shirt. You threw me off. Thanks for being unpredictable.
Thank you. I like to keep people on their toes. I just thought, colorful. I don't know. It's like 85 degrees in New York City, which is really confusing. So I'm like trying to vibe with it.
The right thing. What do you think about the show Pose? Have you seen
Oh my God, I love it. It's one of the best shows.
Me too. Speaking of dress and wear and things.
And like it's the first show to have that many trans women in a cast ever in the history of TV. And like, it's got its problems. Like it definitely like neoliberalizes things, I think, but ultimately like, wow, like just so powerful. And everybody on that show is just so fucking amazing, like so talented. So yeah.
Well, I had to ask that question, especially since you bring up, Boy George in the 80s, and then Irene, you really took me back with What a Feeling. What a feeling. For those who don't know, you youngsters, you gotta look it up. Oh, we'll have you dancing. Okay, so that's good. Okay, another question I have to ask, and then oh my gosh, I can't believe we're almost running out of time. Another soul check question. And okay, this is one I ask almost everyone. Do you have a favorite quote? And if you did, like, I'm talking like something, 6 words or something, or like a one-liner that you would put on your headstone if you were to have one.
I don't know if I have a favorite quote. I mean, because it's hard for me to pick things, but I would say something like the mantra that I'm working with as of yesterday that I came up with in therapy, because I'm struggling with trust, is trust is trust. A verb, a noun, a lifestyle. That's what I'm trying to like put into the world for myself and for other people.
So say it again. It would say
trust.
And then it would probably say a verb,
a noun, a lifestyle.
I guess, because at the end of it all, right? Trust is at the core of everything. I feel when we want to truly transcend, right? And we have to have a level of trust in ourselves, in this process, in this life, especially as marginalized people. And I'm just so grateful that you trusted me today.
Yeah. Oh my God. Thank you so much for having me.
Wow. It's been a pleasure. What a soulful journey.
Yeah. Oh.
And you don't be a stranger. Yeah. I want to give a shout out to your parents, or who, is there a teacher or somebody you want to give a shout out to who really helped you too before we quit?
Yeah, well, I mean, all of my mothers, like my grandmother, my mother, my aunts, all of the mothers, and all of the like mothers in general. I just feel like
Who was the one that really made you feel like it was okay to be you and just be?
I think I think the trifecta, my grandmother, my aunt Donna, and my mom, they're the triple goddess.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Because when was there like a moment where you all just came together and said, and you did you have to come out to them or say something like?
Well, my grandmother, and my aunt died when I was 12, so that the trans stuff didn't come into being yet, or as a spoken thing. But yeah, I've come out to my mom. I mean, the gender stuff with family is like really hard because I don't think they get it, but like they, I don't know, they were always really encouraging of like me being a bright, shining person, which I feel like is related.
Well, it is related, and I just want to ask you, what do you see for the future? Just for in general, I'm just going to ask that general question as we move out of the times that we are in. Hopefully, we are going to be coming into a new space and time. And what do you want to? Is there anything that you want to say that will help us get there? Like one last thing, I guess. Any last words you want to leave people with for the future?
Yeah, I think that we need to never forget how powerful we are and how powerful we've been, like collectively. Like we're here because of so much resilience, and that there's so much more to come. Like we're powerful. They're afraid of us, and we're gonna win.
Hey, I heard that.
What a feeling!
Rexylafemme has spoken, and we are so happy that you came on today. So thank you so
this
much
has been
for
so
being.
nice.
So I'm losing the light on you, but you
I
are the
know.
light.
Yeah.
Like, what happened? That's just it. We accept our darkness and our light.
That's right.
Transcendent is all
Moving
about.
into Scorpio season soon, so.
Well, until next time, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up. But you stay there in the green room. I'm gonna say goodbye to everyone. So hold on, Rexy. Just wave bye for now.
Bye. Love y'all.
All right. Well, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Soulful Journey. And if you want to follow rexylafemme, make sure you follow the rexylafemme .com website, and also make sure you check out that hashtag rexylafemme, and you'll learn out more about our guest. And thank you for watching. My name is, again, Venus Jones, and I'm an author, a poet, and an educator, and a former Millsy, if I must say so. If you didn't know, you know now. And even though Mills doesn't even exist, the truth of the matter is energy never dies. And we are doing this work. So thank you for being in courageous conversation with me. And maybe this spark conversation for you and a loved one. If you like this episode, make sure you click like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, just know that I always end the show the same way. And it's because I care so much about you. And it's like, I want you to keep looking up and keep looking out. Because when we do, there's a lot less fear. There's a lot less doubt. Oh,